William Thomas is an award-winning investigative journalist with more than 30 years' experience specializing in covert military operations, health, environmental issues. During and immediately after Desert Storm, William served 5 months as a member of a 3-man environmental emergency response team in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Will Thomas is perhaps best known as the journalist who broke the story on chemtrails on Coast to Coast AM in January 1999, all documented in the latest edition of his book, Chemtrails Confirmed. You know, this situation with chemtrails seems to me, and the people who call and email me, it seems to be getting more widespread. It's not going away at all, is it?
No, that's what's exciting. I'm talking to people now in Italy, Germany, Greece. And of course we have a very active group of individuals down in Santa Cruz and right here in Canada, in Victoria, British Columbia. And we're getting some breakthroughs all the time on this story.
Okay, explain for us, Will, if you can, the difference between chemtrails and contrails, and do they appear the same, at least to people who are just looking up there in the sky?
Contrails are as easy to imagine as exhaling your breath on a cold day. That's basically what we're looking at. Hot, moist engine exhaust from aircraft engines at high altitudes in the stratosphere, about 35,000 feet up, and particles, dirt particles in the exhaust come out, hit that super cold air, and it has to be minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, NASA tells us, and boom, you've got a short-lived ice crystal condensation plume or contrail. We're all used to seeing them. The military and civil aviation people tell us they usually, though not always, but 98% of the time disappear within a minute or much less. That's a contrail. What we've been seeing since '98 and even before then, but certainly intensified since the winter of '98, are plumes that look much fatter and wider, broader than contrails initially. And instead of dissipating, these plumes spread out and cover the entire sky, turning blue sky days into a milky, murky haze. And we often see airliners laying contrails, very thin, pencil-thin trails above these plumes, or we see airliners leaving no trails at all at the same altitude. So we know that something very different is going on, and sometimes if the sun is right, we see a prismatic reflection, like a small section of a rainbow that looks to untrained eyes like there's some kind of chemical or petroleum residue in the sky. And again, we've never seen this before. Everyone's used to contrails, but these plumes are different. And finally, they have a ragged, jagged edge. I was out looking at some just the other day, and contrails have a smooth edge. They don't look like these jaggedy chemtrails that sometimes seem to rain down in veils out of the sky all the way to the ground.
Well, and you made the difference between the chemtrail and the contrail in that the contrail is supposed to dissipate pretty quickly. Because, heck, I remember years ago, just as a kid, you'd sit back and watch, you'd look up into the sky, you'd see a plane go by, and it did dissipate relatively fast. I mean, it didn't hang up there all day, and then all the other jets that went by would have contributed to it. They all went away real fast. Now they don't.
Now they don't. And we have Mark Stedham did a landmark study, a major favor for all of us, down in Houston in the winter of 2000. Using a Flight Explorer software program, he checked out every airplane going over Houston, every jet at high altitude. And with Flight Explorer, was able to identify the commercial airliners and the military aircraft. And in December, for example, December 8th, he found contrails or trails from commercial airliners lasting 10 seconds. And at the very same time, which happened to be 1 in the afternoon, at the same altitude, same airspace, military plane left trails lasting 4 to 8 hours. And again, he repeated those experiments and found that all confirmed contrails lasted 2 minutes or less. were 96% of the trails that he looked at.
How high up do they fly?
They usually fly below contrail altitudes according to Major Barlow in Washington State for the simple reason they're there to refuel tactical fighters and helicopters that can't waste fuel getting up to high altitudes. So they fly below 30,000 feet unless they're, say, traveling around the world to some other theater. So that's a big tip-off. They generally do not leave normal contrails, and yet we're seeing these tankers leaving long, lingering plumes.
Are there jet sprays attached to them up there somewhere?
We don't have any good photographs of that. The Hughes patent issued in 91 called for the addition of reflectant particles that we see, these pure white plumes, to put into the fuel tanks right through the engine, so you would not need any special spray apparatus that would be visible, say, to ground crews or necessitate refitting the airplanes. Having said that, I continue to get emails from people as far away from Italy claiming they have excellent photographs of the spray coming off the tail sections of airplanes. I haven't seen any good photographs, and what I think may be happening is the trail, the hot exhaust out this engine doesn't really form a plume until it gets back around the tail section. I'm open to the argument, but I haven't seen anything that would indicate special spray apparatus would be necessary. The so-called mega sprayers that we see on websites seem to have spray coming off the entire length of their wings. We do have patents for spray apparatus that could be affixed to the wings of aircraft.
Now, you're pounding away at this, Will, and you've done it for years. Are you getting any additional help from mainstream media? Are they doing any investigative work here, or are you out there all by yourself still?
In terms of a journalist who's been at this career for some 30 years, I'm the only one taking this seriously. Certainly I depend on people like your listeners, people who email me with information, and many researchers out there.
What has been the official government statement when you call someone in a high capacity? Do they deny that it's going on? Do they deny what is going on? What do they say?
They absolutely deny it. I've talked to the head of air traffic control for California, and he absolutely denied there was anything taking place. Interestingly, after the conversation, the person who set that conversation up called the same individual, and he denied speaking to me. So, we've been told that this has increased Christmas air traffic. We were told that in March in Michigan. EPA passes the buck to the Air Force who pass it back. It's basic denial, and of course the stock answer is, come on, get real. These are airliners. We've had a major increase in air traffic, very true, by the way, over the past decade, and this has increased air traffic. Our response is, okay, that's fair, increased air traffic, so that's gradual over a 10-year period. We're seeing these suddenly out of nowhere blanketing entire areas for weeks and months, then stopping abruptly. We don't see them for weeks or even months, and then they're back. I suggest that airline schedules do not operate this way. They fly to, and they look for storm fronts, and they look for atmospheric conditions conducive to something called atmospheric folding, where they can actually spray these chemicals and attempt to fold down the upper atmospheric conditions into the lower troposphere where weather is made, and he said affect these fronts over thousands of miles.
They maybe get the biggest bang for their flight.
Yes, and again we see them also flying through and over cloud cover, so you wonder if some of these missions were laid on in advance and not scrubbed, or there was some additional reason for spraying sunlight reflectant materials.